For the first time in centuries, researchers have uncovered what's believed to be Jesus' tomb inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
When the marble covering was first lifted, the team expected a plain stone surface. Nothing unusual, nothing historic, just the same layer pilgrims had touched for centuries. But beneath the dust, something unexpected appeared. A second slab, older, heavier, marked with a simple cross carved by hands that lived almost 1,000 years ago. It was a Crusader symbol, silent, worn, forgotten. No one knew it was there, no record mentioned it, yet it waited under the marble like a message from another age. The room grew quiet. Engineers leaned in. Monks stepped closer. The air seemed to change as the team realized they were looking at a secret sealed since the 12th century. But that was only the beginning. The deeper they went, the more the past began to wake, revealing signs that the tomb had survived things no human story had ever told. And then they found the stone itself. Beneath the second marble slab, the team uncovered the surface no one believed they would ever see again, the original limestone burial bed. The stone was pale, cracked, and worn by time, yet it held a quiet strength as if guarding a story older than any empire. Ground-penetrating radar hummed softly, revealing layers beneath the surface that matched the shape of a first-century Jewish tomb. It was the kind described in ancient texts, the kind used for the wealthy, the kind Joseph of Arimathea would have owned. The scientists stared. Some whispered, others stood frozen. This wasn't a guess or a legend anymore. The stone matched the exact style of burial places from the time of Jesus. It had survived fires, invasions, and even the total destruction of the church above it. Somehow, it still stood. But there was something even stranger, a scent drifting through the chamber, a scent that no one could explain. As the scanners continued their work, a faint sweetness filled the air. It wasn't strong, but it was clear, like flowers opening somewhere in the dark. The scientists checked their instruments. Engineers checked their tools. Nothing in the room could have caused it, yet the scent grew stronger, drifting across the exposed limestone as if the stone itself was breathing. Several workers later said it reminded them of incense. Others said it felt like standing inside a quiet garden. No one could explain why it appeared the moment the tomb was opened. The team wasn't sure what to make of it. They came searching for history, not mysteries. But inside this tiny chamber, sealed for nearly 5 centuries, the usual rules didn't seem to apply. And that was when the archaeologists noticed something else, something almost impossible. The tomb's interior didn't just match the right era, it matched the right damage, a pattern only one story could explain. The limestone wasn't smooth. It carried long, thin fractures, damage caused by heat so intense it melted parts of the chamber. At first the team didn't understand it, but then the history became clear. In the year 1009, the entire Church of the Holy Sepulchre was destroyed by fire under the rule of Caliph al-Hakim. Flames tore through the site, walls fell, stones shattered, yet the tomb itself, carved deep into bedrock, somehow survived. The fractures on the burial bed matched the very trauma recorded from that destruction. It meant the stone resting before them wasn't a replica or a later shrine. It was original, ancient, the same surface pilgrims visited before the Crusades. Every new detail pushed the team deeper into the past, but the more the evidence lined up, the stranger the story became. Because if this tomb stayed intact through fire and war, how did it remain untouched for so long? For centuries, no one dared open the tomb. Not priests, not scholars, not the many groups who shared control of the church. A fragile agreement known as the status quo kept every part of the Holy Sepulchre locked in tradition. Even moving a single ladder could cause conflict, so the idea of listing the marble covering the tomb was unthinkable. Records showed it had been sealed since at least 1555. That meant no human eye had seen the burial bed beneath for almost 500 years. Generations passed, wars came and went, empires rose and fell, yet the tomb stayed closed, untouched, hidden behind white stone. So when engineers finally received permission to open it in 2016, they knew they had only one chance. They had just 60 hours before the chamber had to be sealed again. Every moment mattered, every breath counted, but they still didn't know what was waiting below.
Inside the tight chamber, the team brought tools that had never touched this stone before. Ground-penetrating radar scanned the walls. Thermal cameras searched for hidden layers. 3D mapping slowly traced the shape of the burial bed. The results came back clear. The limestone was not a later addition. It was part of the original rock-cut tomb, carved in the same style used in Jerusalem during the 1st century. Wealthy families used tombs like this, tombs cut by hand, tombs built quickly, tombs just like the one described in the Gospel accounts of Joseph of Arimathea. Then the radar picked up something unexpected. Voids and channels carved deeper into the bedrock, older than the marble above it. Features not seen from the surface, features only found in tombs from the time of Jesus. The scientists stared at the scans, realizing what the data suggested. But the next test would be even more shocking. To confirm the age of the chamber, The team collected tiny samples of mortar from the hidden layers beneath the marble slabs. These samples were so small they looked like grains of dust, yet they held the key to a question people had asked for centuries. When was this tomb first sealed? The samples were rushed to a lab. Hours later, the results came back. Radiocarbon dating placed the construction around the year 345. That was the era of Emperor Constantine, the same time his mother, Helena, identified this site as the tomb of Jesus and ordered the first church to be built over it. For the team, the evidence felt like a bridge across history. The stone, the style, the scars, the dating, all of it pointed to a tomb untouched since the earliest days of Christianity. But if everything matched, one final question remained. Why was the tomb empty when they opened it? When the final readings were complete, the team expected to find at least some trace of a body, dust, fragments, anything that hinted at human remains. But the chamber was clean, not recently cleaned, not emptied by time or decay, clean in a way that puzzled the scientists. A first-century tomb should have held signs of use. Even reused tombs carried traces of the people once placed inside them. But here, there was nothing, only smooth limestone, untouched by centuries of human presence. For believers, the empty tomb has always carried a message. But the archaeologists were left with a puzzle. A burial place built in the right era, preserved through destruction, sealed for centuries, yet empty from the moment it was first recorded. The silence inside the chamber felt heavier than the stone around it. But the biggest surprise wasn't the tomb's emptiness. It was what they found on the walls. As the scanners moved across the chamber, the team noticed markings hidden beneath centuries of soot and dust. At first they looked like scratches, but when the light shifted, the shapes grew clearer. Crosses carved by Crusaders who reached Jerusalem hundreds of years ago. Some were simple lines. Others were deeper, etched with force, as if carved during moments of fear or hope. These marks told a quiet story. Generations of believers had entered this space long before it was sealed, leaving behind small signs of faith before stepping into the world again. But one carving stood out. It rested close to the burial bed, older than the others, almost erased by time. A symbol pointing toward the very place where the limestone dipped, marking the burial niche. No one knew who carved it, no one knew when, but it felt deliberate, like a message for whoever opened the tomb next. And there was one more clue waiting, a clue no one expected to see. While documenting the final scans, one of the researchers brushed away a thin layer of dust near the base of the limestone bed. What appeared was a faint groove, almost invisible unless the light hit it just right. It wasn't a crack, it wasn't damage. It was a deliberate cut, shallow, smooth, and shaped like a guiding line. The team debated what it meant. Some thought it showed how the body was positioned. Others believed that marked the place where the burial cloth once lay. But one idea stood out. This groove matched the measurements of first-century tombs used for only a short time, tombs meant for someone who would not remain there long. The room fell silent. No one said the words out loud. They didn't have to. The tomb had been opened. The evidence had been revealed. But this last detail raised a question no scan could answer, and it points to something even deeper, still hidden beneath Jerusalem.